Welcome to the Dad Show podcast. How y'all doing? Today is part 3.
Do parents have the emotional intelligence to do that when their kid is melting down over the color of a cup?
Yeah.
And if the answer is yes, you will never have to punish your kids again. Because you do that, you come back to it later, you go, so it turned out that cup thing probably wasn't as big of a deal as we thought, huh? Yeah. What should I say to you next time that you get really upset about a cup? I don't know. Okay. Well, how about I just do what I did last time? We do the color game again? Okay. And then the next time, you got to do it again. Third time, they do it themselves.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. You keep punishing kids. You're just redoing and redoing. You go the way that you're doing with your daughter. If we have the emotional maturity to realize that beyond the really big things, even the small things feel big to them. Every disappointment feels like they got divorced. That's what I try and tell parents.
Wow.
You go, this isn't that big of a deal. You don't get that toy in the store with them and they're screaming and shouting. Yeah, we could talk about entitlement. Let's have that conversation later. But to them in that moment, feels like they just lost their job.
Yeah.
Feels like they just got divorced. Feels like,
wow.
Because that part of their brain, the part of your brain that feels,
yeah,
fully developed in your toddler. They have the same capacity to feel as sad as you have ever felt in your life. They can feel that sad.
Wow.
But they have no capacity to control it. And that's the real trick.
Yeah, that's, man, that's eye-opening to think about that, especially whenever your parent or your kids do aggravate you and push you to that limit. Like that's really big to think about.
They're having a hard time. They're not giving you one.
So what's the E in whole? We went through the L.
Yeah. So W, remember the wire, or consider the wiring.
Yep.
H, honor the emotions. O, outline the boundaries and the consequences. In this case, not in this case, but in if you need to. L, lead them out. Use those techniques that you have. I have 1 million in the book. E is empower and equip for the future. This is actually where most parents don't ever do the E. Most parents just go to. Most parents do all their parenting in O.
Yeah.
Right? They go, their kid is acting up, they're acting whatever. You walk in, you go, it's not okay to talk to your mom like that. And if you keep talking to your mom like that, I'm going to wash your mouth out with soap, right?
Yeah.
I'm just giving you kind of a goofy one. But that's just O by itself. They don't do any of the lead up. They don't honor the experience. They don't consider what's going on. They don't ask the questions. They just go right to O. Then they don't lead them out. They don't help them to regulate.
Yeah.
And the worst of all is that they don't come back an hour later, 2 hours later, 15 minutes later, maybe only, right? And they don't do that Monday morning quarterback with their kids. And this is, I think, the most impactful part of the book. I could have written an entire book just on E. The best way to parent is actually not in those moments of dysregulation. We think about discipline as the things we do when our kids act up. It's not. Discipline is what we do when our kids are calm. Discipline is what we do when our kids are just hanging out and we're having a good day. And we go, you remember yesterday when you said that thing to your mom? I'm just interested in what's going on. And no, parents very rarely do that because they don't want to bring up a wound or whatever. Often they don't want to bring up how they feel about what they did in reaction.
Yeah.
But if they feel confident enough and they actually bring those things up and they bring those things back to the forefront, then you're talking to a kid in that place who is in the best possible learning state. They're calm, they're regulated, they can think about their actions. That emotional part of their brain probably not even online. They're really just thinking. And when you can talk to a kid's thinking brain, what I call their thinking brain, their prefrontal cortex, that's where they're learning. And so E, empower for the future, is all about all of these techniques that I talk about. One of them we've already mentioned is the role playing. Hey, how about you play the role of mom and I'll play the role of you. And when you do that, just for example, not only does your child have the opportunity to experience, which is a lot of parents will do this basically to make their child feel the consequences of what they've just done. Not only do they experience what it's like to be mom and hear those things spoken about them, even more importantly, they tell you exactly what they needed to hear.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
like I've been doing this. I've been a coach for many years, not like a online coach, but like a actual sports coach.
Yeah.
And when I coach volleyball, I say, if you were the coach and you were trying to get me to not, turn my hips the wrong way before I swing or something, or to not square up to square up my shoulders before I set the ball, what would you tell me? And I'd say, oh, you just got to, what I've realized is you got to do this and this and this to make it happen. I go, okay, switch back. Hey, you got to do this, this, and this to make it happen. And they're like, oh,
yeah.
You mean I had the answer the whole time? Yeah. And so actually E is about facilitating self-discipline in your kids. E is actually how you, again, quote from the book, how you discipline yourself out of a job. I don't want to have to police my kids. Not fun for me. I want to play with my kids.
Yeah.
I want to have a good time. Sometimes I play a little too rough and I hurt them and I'm going to apologize. But by and large, I want to have a good time.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I want to do with my kids. I don't want to be policing your behavior. You know who I want to police their behavior? Them.
Exactly.
That's what equipping and empowering for the future is. It's teaching kids how to police their own behavior.
Wow.
Not because they're afraid of you, but because they actually want to be a decent human being.
Yeah.
And I think most kids do. It's us who train kids out of that. They come out pretty empathetic and loving. I mean, not empathetic so much, but they come out pretty loving and compassionate.
Yeah.
If we can let them be, boy, we can get somewhere.
So I guess to sum this whole thing up is kind of the whole premise of the Dad Show, like open communication.
Yep.
Telling your kids that you love them,
Yep.
telling your kids that you're proud of them, and, tell them that you care about them, and keeping that gentleness, that calm. Now you have to be stern at some point in times, but for the most part, as long as you open those lines of communication and you're calm and you express that, especially going to the kids that don't have the families that's been through hard times. And, I don't even want to mention some of the stuff, but,
Yeah.
Especially those kids and even adults at this point that they've been through it their whole life, like hearing those words, I love you, I care about you, I'm proud of you, and not lashing out and being calm whenever you're speaking with them. I feel like, there's a lot more in the book, but
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of that conversation can be summed up with that little bit of synopsis there.
Absolutely. And, I think a lot of us were taught, just to kind of summarize exactly what you just said, the I love you piece, right? A lot of us were taught that the basis for discipline is control, right? That really there has to be a hierarchy. I'm not saying there isn't a hierarchy. We are still, we have to lead.
Yes.
We're the adults. We are the ones with a much more robust sense of the world, a developed brain, all of that stuff, right? There's a hierarchy, but a lot of people are like, hey, discipline is about control and compliance. We actually know that all discipline comes from a place of connection, not control.
Yeah.
And so if you can connect with your kid first, that's really all this comes down to. Number one, you're not going to want to punish him. Ryan, do you ever want to punish your kid?
No, I don't.
We do it sometimes when we're out of control, and other times when we feel like we have to.
Yeah.
But if we deeply connect with our kid first, I actually don't have to convince most parents. Once they get to W and H, I never have to convince them not to punish again, because when you're reasonable and when you're calm and when you lead with love, you don't punish.
Yeah.
And that's the beautiful
so
thing.
much better too. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, this would take us down a long path, but I mean, if we're so sure punishment works, why don't we do it to our partners?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, because we know that it's much better received when we come to them with compassion and vulnerability and connection first, and we lead with love and we express our desires in a calm fashion. Oh yeah, it's almost as if we did that with our kids, they'd probably be a lot better off too.
Well, that's a perfectly good segue into my next question for you is you have all this going on. You've got 4 kids, but at the end of the day, you're still a husband and you still have a loving wife, and you have to show all that to your wife. So how do you juggle all of this stuff while still making your wife feel loved, feel important, and spending that quality time with her?
Yeah, super simple. I have stopped trying to be for my wife what I thought a good husband was supposed to be. And I have started to actually listen actively to what she's looking for.
That's huge.
One thing that's kind of silly, we don't really parent with each other. In other words, we try and it's easier for one of us to take the baby and the other one to take the other three than it is to try and have everybody in the room at the same time. Nobody likes being judged in their parenting. I don't like when my wife judges my parenting. She doesn't like when I judge hers. Vacations are a little tricky, but we do try and parent separately. And people say, but don't you want to spend time with your wife? Well, that's why on the back end of the day, at 7 p.m. tonight, or I guess 8 p.m. after bedtime, my phone goes away. And from 8 p.m. until when we go to bed, that's her time. I don't take meetings. I really don't travel unless I absolutely have to.
Yeah.
And from 8 to 10:30, we just talk. And some people, sometimes we got to watch a show or something. There's a kid's, sleep in and we got to be quiet. But, majority of the years 10 years that I've been married to my wife, from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m., that's just us talking. And I think if you talk and if you listen, basically every relationship works.
And that's so huge to say that you put your phone away. You disconnect.
That's new. That's new, Ryan. That's new as of like a month ago where I just realized that anytime I got a notification, it took me out of that moment. And I just decided, with some strong, encouraging words from her, that it was not worth being taken out of those moments.
And it's, sometimes it don't even get to that moment. You yourself or your spouse or both of you is so caught up in whatever you're looking at on your phone that you never make that connection to even be broken in the first place. And so
that's right.
Like one of the big things that we do at our house is when we sit down as a family and we eat dinner at a table and we have communication. We don't turn on the TV, all phones are away. It doesn't matter if they ring, whatever.
Leave them.
It's put away, and that is our time as a family. I'm a fireman, so I work a 24-hour shift, so I'm not home all the time. And so I really, really value that time to be able to sit down at a table and eat with my kids and my wife and, us being a family. And I don't want those distractions. And I'm very guilty. I'm not going to say that I'm the best at it. That, I don't allow the distractions to happen, but that's really huge. And so that's two things that I advise is, for one, to sit down as a family and eat dinner and put everything away. And then just like you said, whenever you and your wife have that time after the kids are in bed, like put the phone away and just spend time as husband and wife and connect and communicate. That's huge.
I love that. Yeah, the dinner thing for us is one of those. It's not quite time for that yet in my house. I have a 3-year-old and a 4-year-old, and so a lot of times if I try and put too much expectation on we're all going to sit here for dinner, we wind up ruining it for the 8-year-old and my wife and me. Sometimes it's more like you eat a piece of pasta and you'll run away. But you know what? Someday I am going to be right where you are, Ryan, because I do think that's huge. Yeah, it's huge,
and it is. And man, everybody says it. Don't wish your life away to where you're like, man, I can't wait till they get to this age. Yeah. Like, enjoy it all, because, man, I miss, even though when my babies were babies, we were in the hospital, for years and spending that time. And that's where I got to see them as babies, not out in the actual household. But I miss that time of. But
when you're holding them and there's that, 12 inches between nose and nose.
Yes.
You could be on Mount Everest. You could be in Antarctica. You could be in the Amazon. It wouldn't matter. The whole world is that 12 inches. So yeah. I'm right with you.
I agree 100%. Before I let you get off here today,
yes,
there's I seen one of your videos and man, I loved it, because I really try to push my kids, even in their condition and everything that they have that's going on. You basically said, don't help your kids too much, because you're enabling them on dependency.
That's right.
And, like my daughter going through her therapies and my son and their surgeries and all the above, like I'm like, I try to push them and push them and push them, almost to the point of where I'm sounding harsh.
Right.
But, I'm trying to teach them to be able to do it themselves and depend on themselves, not depend on me to always, or her mom to be there to take care of them. So
it's a delicate balance. So what Harvard tells us is that there's 3 types of stress. There's what we consider just kind of tolerable stress. This is the stress that most of us face every day. It's not stress that really helps us grow, but it's tolerable. It just kind of leaves us. Then there's good stress. We very rarely talk about good stress, but good stress is, doing those things that stretches us. And as a result, we wind up having more agency, more confidence. And then there's toxic stress. And toxic stress is tolerable stress if you don't have a safe home to go to. And so any stress, losing a loved one, can be tolerable if you have people and safe people like parents, if you're a child, to process those things with, or it can become toxic if you don't have that. And so here's where I go with the pushing kids, why I say the stress piece is how I think about this. I am always going to try and push my kids towards good stress that's going to help them grow.
Yeah.
That said, a lot of times what's good stress versus toxic stress, or good stress versus bad stress, which could either be toxic or tolerable, is in the child's perception, in my kid's perception of what's happening. And so in our family, I'm the pusher and my wife is the safe home base. And I'm also the safe home base when it needs to be.
Yeah.
But what I try and encourage parents to do is, if your inclination is to push, learn to be safe. Learn to say, it's okay if this isn't today. If your inclination is to say, it's okay if this isn't today, first, learn to push. Give you a great example. My son is highly sensitive. It's this thing I could get into for the next hour if you wanted, but my son's highly sensitive. It means that one of the ways that he goes through the world is that he really has to see other people do it before he does. He never wants to be the first.
Yeah.
Not going to be the first kid in the pool. My youngest, or I guess second youngest, my 3-year-old, jump in the pool, no floaties, like hopefully I'll swim. Like nobody's in there. We got to like keep stuff away from this kid. The other day he just took the waffle iron out, plugged it in. Like just wild, right? He does whatever, like
Very
that's just who he
curious,
is.
huh?
Nobody's going to have to tell this kid to do anything. He's going to do it himself. But my son, we have this local little like pool, but it's got some slides. So it's a community thing. And he's looking at these slides last year in the beginning of the summer. And he's going, I'm never going down those in my life. And I'm thinking to myself, he can swim. He probably enjoy it. And my instinct as the pusher is to go, come on, let's just get up there. Let's just see what it's like up there. Come on. Okay, you could go and just give him a little push and then you're going to enjoy it. I'm that dad. But instead I went, okay, my instinct is to push. Let me just back up a little bit. So I backed up a little bit. 2 weeks later, we're there again. His friend is there, our next door neighbor. And Muhammad wants to go down this slide. And I said, why don't you just go up there with him so you can watch him go down? I mean, you don't have to go down, but just go watch him.
Yeah.
My son sees him go down. This kid who told me 2 weeks ago, I'm never doing this my whole life. Dad, can I go on the blue slide? Of course you can go on the blue slide. Now, if it had been my wife, she'd have said, are you sure you want to go on the blue slide? So this is the moment, right? We have to learn when we push and when we're safe. And if we can do that effectively, our kids will achieve to their highest standard, because you push a kid beyond what they're able or willing to do, and they'll respond by saying, I'm never going to that park with you again.
Yeah.
And then you miss the opportunity.
Yeah.
On the other hand, you say, are you sure you want to go on the blue slide? It's really scary. Okay, I'm rethinking this. I'm not doing it anymore. Yeah. And so it's a delicate balance. But I do think we are in a period of time in parenting where I watch most parents rush in to help, and it's hurting our kids. So that's the real thing, right? Let your kids fall off. I talk about this extensively in the book. Let your kids fall off playground equipment. It's okay.
Yeah.
Let your kids have that uncomfortable conversation with their friends. Don't save them. Let your kids do that thing that they're not maybe going to really like the outcome. All those things are good stress. But you also don't, just as we do it, we also don't have to always push. We can also be the person who goes, okay, your mom's out here. I'm going to take on that role. And man, did it pay off, because this kid is flying down these slides now, Ryan.
Wow.
Like just every time, can we go? I got to get on those slides. Now I'm like, hey, buddy, no head first.
Yeah. Now you want to be the scared one. You want to reserve back.
That's right. Now I'm like, shoot, as I watch this kid come, his friend is wearing this like they're Muslim, and so he's wearing this like rash guard because he's really modesty, right? My son's like this like little, tiny, he likes to wear this like, 3T swimsuit, even though he's like 8 years old. He just likes how it feels. And he's like, flying down this thing because he's like a wet seal.
Oh yeah.
And so his friend is just like scooting down nice and slow, and I'm like, yeah, man, if you had known. I also didn't say that, well, Muhammad's wearing a rash guard, so he went slower.
Yeah.
You can let him have those experiences, but boy, man, he shoots out of that thing, like skips on the water when he comes out the bottom.
Here in about a year, you'll be going putting baby oil on the slides.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. That's how he is when we go sledding, man. He goes sledding, he's just running up, on his chest. This is a kid who you'd never expect that from.
Wow.
But he's learned to be safe. And that's the thing. That's actually, paradoxically, having good boundaries, that actually is what makes kids feel safe to do that stuff.
Yeah, that's true. That's really true. Well, man, before I close this out today, is there anything that we didn't discuss that you think would be, you're good, don't worry about it. Anything that you would think that would be? No,
you know what? I really hope that the dads who listen give this a shot. I understand hearing somebody talk about a totally different way of parenting than how most of us were raised can feel disorienting. It can feel scary. I don't mean to say that you're scared, but it can feel disorienting.
Yeah.
And so just, give it a shot. And if you try some of this stuff with your kid, you try some of that playing different roles or, processing or grounding or whatever, and it seems like it's working better than what you were doing before, go ahead and grab my book, grab the audio version of my book. I read it myself from my publisher, and check it out. You can, I think what I've heard is that if you listen to one podcast, it's likely that you listen to up to 5 podcasts. And so keep listening to the Dad Show. But if you want to come over and talk about neuroscience parenting, pretty short episodes, the Whole Parent Podcast is another place to find me.
Hey, go follow Jon at the Whole Parent Podcast. The Dad Show's good, but Jon's got a lot better tips and tricks. So please go follow Jon. Go buy his book. At the time this is dropping, his book is available. And go get it. You can get that at Amazon, Walmart, every book outlet. Is that correct?
As far as I know, you can get it basically anywhere, but if you order it online, you can get it, I know for sure you can get it. And so I'll give you the show, the link for the show notes.
Awesome, man. And I'm going to get it. I haven't read it, hadn't had an opportunity yet, but I'm excited about it. And I'm excited to put some of these tips and tricks into place in my life as a dad, as a father, and even as a husband. Going through this. So go follow Jon at A Whole Parent. Is that correct?
That's right.
That's on all social media as well. So Jon, man, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to give us the insight and for being with us today, man.
The pleasure has been all mine, Ryan. Thank you.
Awesome, Jon. You have a great day. And all of you all, as always, we love you, we care about you, and we're proud of you. God bless.
Thank you for listening to the Dad Show podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Dad Show podcast. Please like, review, and subscribe.